Hi, it's Penny here, and today we're going to be doing the 20 questions to get to know you book tag created by Chloe Frizzle, who I will leave down below. She's really great, especially if you like sci-fi and romance, which you don't always see those two put together. So if that's what you like, definitely check her out. But this book tag basically has 20 questions just so we can get to know each other. So let's start with the first question, which is how many books are too many in a series? And I'm going to say it depends, which is basically going to be my answer for a lot of these. I think if a series is good and the author has the ideas to continue the series in a way that still lives up to whatever the series started as, then why not continue it? If you're continuing it for like, I don't know, like 100 books, maybe more than that. Ooh, more than that. I'm remembering now, probably the longest series I have ever read would be the Heralds of Valdemar series by Mercedes Lackey. I started reading this when I was really young. There are still more books coming out now. I think, I did a video the other day, I think there's nearly like 60 books in that series. And it is broken up into lots of little trilogies. I think that's the best way to go if you're going to do a really long series, because otherwise it's just like too much to even know where you would start it, and like too much for people to start the series and feel like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to read 100 books or whatever. So I like series that are broken up into smaller trilogies, I think, where you can just read a trilogy on its own if you want. Another example I actually have of that would be the Realm of the Elderlings trilogy by Robin Hobb. So this is the first book in that series. I just called it a trilogy. There's actually like 15, 16 books in the series, but it's mostly trilogies, maybe one quartet. I've got a picture here. I'll put a picture here. And I think Robin Hobb is working on potentially another trilogy in this world. So like, maybe I really love trilogies, but I like them to be part of a bigger world. That's what I like. The longest single series that I can think of that I love would be the Kate Daniels series, which is like 10 books. And 10 books was about right for that. I do also really like Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere, but that is another one where it's broken up into separate ones. And the Stormlight Archives, I think, is going to max out at 10 books. So let's say 10 books is my max, but I'll take more if it's part of the same world. Next question is, how do you feel about cliffhangers? And you know, I don't mind them as long as the author is going to be reliable in terms of delivering on what happens next. Like if I think about Doors of Stone by Patrick Rothfuss that we haven't gotten yet. I don't even know at this point. Was Wise Man's Fear a cliffhanger? Possibly not, but there was definitely lots of open-ended things that we're waiting to find out more about. And will we ever get to know? Maybe not. So like, in that case, definitely no, don't give me a cliffhanger. But what I do love about a cliffhanger is like you get that oh shit moment at the end of the book, which is super exciting, and then you have like all that anticipation until you can read the next book. And also, if you're reading a book like as a backlist book, you can just go straight into the next book, so who cares? But if it's not a backlist book and you have to wait, like you get to have all that anticipation and you can talk with other people about like, oh, what's going to happen? Like, I don't mind it. Then the next question is hardcover or paperback. I would say hardcovers look really good on a bookshelf. They sit really nice. I mean, this section of this bookshelf is paperbacks, but they only really work if they're like squished in. Hardcovers, they look nice on a bookshelf, right? But when it comes to reading a book, I want a paperback all day. Like, I know some people say they like those big floppy ones. Nah, give me one of those smaller. Do I have one? I think I've boxed most of them. I guess like this, like a smaller mass market paperback that you can like, even if it's quite a fat book with a lot in it. Like this book is 750 pages, but it's not even that big, and I can just hold it really easily in one hand. Like, I don't know, this is the kind of book that I like to read, but it doesn't look as nice on the shelf. If I was going to choose though, I would choose the paperbacks because I'm always going to prioritize actually reading over shelf beauty. Then the fourth question is favorite book, and I will be refusing to answer this question. Every month, I do my monthly wrap-ups as like book battles where I battle the books against each other until I come up with my favorite book of the month. And even those decisions are almost impossible because when you like books for completely different things and they're completely different books trying to do completely different things, how do you compare them? I don't think I can decide on a favorite book. I can't do it. So then the next question is least favorite book, and I thought at first maybe I couldn't do this either because there are a lot of books I don't like, but I have picked one. I'm not sure if it's actually my least favorite, but when I looked at my 1-star ratings over the last few years, this one stood out as my least favorite of those, and that is 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami. I only read like the first third, I think. And I have loved some stuff by Haruki Murakami before, primarily the Wind Up Bird Chronicle, but just his whole attitude to sex and the way that he treats teenage girls, and like, what is he even on when he talks about periods? It was just gross and drawn out and awful, and I hated it the whole time. Then the next question is love triangles, yes or no? And I am not really a romance girly, so I would say no. I can be on the side of a romance if it's done like, I kind of want to say enemy to lovers, but more like just like they don't really get along, or they have some reason to be antagonistic towards each other, but then they also have a shared goal that they work together on, and through that they discover that they're really great partners and that there's something there. That's the kind of romance I want. There's no room for a love triangle in that. I don't want a love triangle. I mean, most of the time I don't even want romance, but I'll accept a little bit if it's done on the side and it's that kind of romance that I like. The next question is the most recent book you couldn't finish, and for me that was The Bone People by Kerry Hulme. So this is a book from the 80s by a New Zealand author. It won the Man Booker Prize, I think, but there's a lot of child abuse in there, and the way that it is dealt with, I don't know, maybe it's a very 80s New Zealand way of doing things, but I don't want to read that. I hated it, and I was trying, like, the writing is very creative, and I was kind of looking for, like, does it have deeper meanings? And you know what? I don't really think it does. In a lot of ways, I came to the conclusion eventually that Kerry Hulme isn't really a very good writer, and it comes across as creative, but maybe it's just not really very good. The next question is a book you're currently reading. I have a stack here of the books that I'm currently reading. So I'm reading The Trouble with Peace by Joe Abercrombie. About 20% of the way in, a little bit bored, although objectively it's amazing. I don't know, that's weird. I think maybe it's because I'm reading Renegade's Magic at the same time, which I'm absolutely loving. It's so slow and emotional, and the magic, like there is magic, this, very little magic, this, a lot of magic, and it's such an interesting kind of magic, so I'm loving this. And then I'm also very slowly before bed reading like a chapter at night of The Sword of Kaigan, and I'm really loving this as well. I'm not going to give a synopsis of these, but if you want to check out my latest vlog, my next vlog, who knows about timing of when these videos will go up, or maybe check out my next wrap up. These will definitely be in it. The next question is the last book you've recommended to someone, and I'm pretty sure it was The Cursed Princess Club by Lamcat. This is like a webtoon that is now being published as a book, following these 3 princesses who are betrothed to the 3 princes of a neighbouring kingdom, but unfortunately the 3rd prince is really unhappy about the fact that the princess he's betrothed to is not as classically beautiful as the others. That princess also meets up with this gang of cursed princesses, and it's just so wholesome and cute, but also really clever and comes together in an amazing way, and I love it, and I recommend it to everyone. Even if you don't think it sounds like something you'd like, you might be surprised. Then the next question is the oldest book that you've read. I had to check the numbers on this, but according to Goodreads, it's Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. So that was published in 1813. I didn't really like it though, so I feel like that's a bad answer for Getting to Know Me. I mainly read that for curiosity, and because I had watched, what was it called? I'll put something here. This web series, The Lizzie Bennet Diaries, which was like a web series retelling. I love that, and so I wanted to read the source material, but it wasn't really my thing. So a better answer would actually be Frankenstein, which was published in 1818. Loved it. it's a classic for a reason. Then the next question is the newest book you've read. So I think just last week I read 2 new releases. One was When Among Crows by Veronica Roth, which was kind of beautiful, but also I had some problems with the way it was written, but I also kind of loved it. We're following this guy who is trying to get in touch with Baba Yaga for reasons that you don't discover for most of the book. There's a lot of Polish mythology in this book. So we've got these kind of vampires who eat like anger and fear and sorrow. It's really short, but I really liked it. I also read Tidal Creatures by Shawnee Maguire, which is the 3rd book in the Alchemical Journeys series. I think it just came out in June. So the first book in that series was Middle Game that I absolutely loved. The second book was Seasonal Fears, which I absolutely loathed. And so I was a bit afraid of Tidal Creatures, but it came out kind of in between, 3 stars. It was okay. Some really interesting like metaphorical concepts, and like half the characters are moon gods or goddesses of some type. So I love that part of it, but the actual plot, not so much. Then the next question is favorite author. And at first I wanted to say I couldn't possibly pick as well, but when I thought about it, you know what? It's probably Robin Hogg. I think it's Robin Hood. Then the next question is buying books or borrowing books. If I had to choose, it would definitely be borrowing books. I use the library all the time. It's great to just know that you can get as many books as you want and you don't have to pay for them. You can try books that you're not very sure about without feeling like you're making a financial investment. I do like, though, having some books on my shelves, especially my favorites that I can just sit and look at my bookshelf and feel happy about, and like know that I can reread my favorites whenever I want without having to wait for the library. Or like with the library, you do always have the risk that maybe the library will decide to get rid of the books that you love, especially if nobody else likes them. And like, I am moving soon, so once I move, the new library system where I'm moving is not as good as my current one, so like maybe I wouldn't be able to get some of my favorite books or books by my favorite authors. So in that case, buying definitely wins. In general, I believe it's all about balance. You don't want to be spending all your money on buying books. Like, who can afford that? Honestly, I have no idea. But borrowing books, so great. But I know that a lot of people just don't have the access to a good library system, in which case, of course, buying books is the only way to go. I actually wish we're in some kind of post-money society where authors didn't need to make money from their books and we could all just read them and have a good time and be happy. Then the next question is a book you dislike but everyone else seems to love. Honestly, I couldn't see a lot of these on my list, but I think the best example would be his Dark Materials series by Philip Pullman. I know a lot of people read this when they were kids, and I always see people saying, I think if you read it as an adult, you would also love it. Well, I read it as an adult and I didn't really love it. There were some elements that I thought had a lot of promise, but overall, I hated the characters, I hated the writing, I hated the structure. Blech. Another example would possibly be A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross, but mostly I think it was the romantic elements that put me off this, and that's just because I'm not that into romance. Then the next question is bookmarks or dog ears. So back in the day, I used to always dog ear my books. And I never worried about it. I think that was back when I used to just read a lot of secondhand books, so it didn't really matter. More recently, I do always use bookmarks. I have these particular bookmarks that like you clip onto the cover and they have a ribbon that you can put in, and I love them because they don't get lost. However, I actually was packing up all the like non-book stuff on my bookshelf a little while ago, and because at the time when I was doing that, I was reading an ebook, somehow I didn't think things through and I packed up all my bookmarks. And now that I'm reading more physical books, I don't have any bookmarks. And I don't like to dog ear my books anymore, especially if they're library books. So what I'm actually doing at the moment is the awful try to remember the page number method, which is not great, doesn't always work. And I'm really looking forward to unpacking my bookmarks at the other end of our move. Then the next question is a book you can always reread. To be honest, I don't often reread things very often, and the way this question is phrased makes me think that it's mostly talking about books that you reread for comfort, and again, I don't often read purely for comfort. One series that I have read a lot of times would be the Babysitter's Club books by Anne M. Madden. These are books from my childhood, and they're just so nostalgic to me, so I can reread those a million times, maybe not a million. I also would say probably Brandon Sanderson's books. I've been rereading the Cosmere this year, last year and this year, and they're infinitely rereadable. Maybe not infinitely though. I'm also definitely planning a reread of The Realm of the Eldlings by Robin Hobb at some point, because I can't see that not being enjoyable, and also that's such a long series that I feel like by the time you get to the end, it's pretty much time to go back to the beginning. Oh, and another book actually that I just picked up is Everyone's an Alien When You're an Alien Too by Jomny Sun. This is just the cutest little alien going to Earth, being told to meet the humans, and then talking to like trees and animals and thinking that they're humans, and it's kind of silly. There's some weird bits, but I think if you gel with the vibes of it, you will love it too. That's probably the only book I can think of that I read purely for comfort. The next question is, can you read while listening to music? And the answer is no. I like silence for reading so that I can really focus. And the next question is, one POV or multiple POVs? And I would say it depends. I didn't use the answer as many times on this as I thought I would, but it depends on the story. I really think some stories suit better being one perspective in either first person or third person, and other stories suit having multiple perspectives, and if you get that wrong it can be very frustrating. I do think multiple POV can be harder for authors to pull off, and it definitely sucks when there's a lot of the different perspectives that you don't care about and you just want to come back to the one that you do care about. But also, I have loved a lot of multiple POV books. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe my favorites are one point of view. Maybe that's the answer. The next question is, do you read a book in one sitting or over multiple days? I would love to read books in one sitting, but I read a lot of longer books, so that would probably result in me dying or like my life falling apart. But also, like, sometimes it's nice not to use a good book all up in one day. Like, it's nice to know that it's there waiting for you while you live your life, and you can just come back to it for a little bit every day. So generally, I read books over multiple days. And then the last question is a book that you read because of the cover. So most recently, I read When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. I talked about it just before. Beautiful cover. I picked it up purely for the cover. Another example from last year would be Cucumber Quest. Adorable. And I don't think it's as much of a problem picking graphic books from the covers as long as the outside matches the inside. And I recommend Cucumber Quest as well. Like, it's the most adorable quest. These little bunnies just going on this magical quest. Love it. So lastly, I do want to tag a few people. Firstly, Sam from Thoughts on Tomes. I saw her recently saying that she thinks tags should make a comeback. So here's a tag. Also, Rachel, I think The Reading Fairy? Not sure, but anyway, Rachel's channel is new and she is really great. You should check her out. I will link these people down below, but Rachel, you're tagged as well. And then also I want to tag Sophia's Thoughts. I saw her the other day saying she wanted some video ideas, so here's an idea, and I would love to get to know all of you a little bit better. And of course, if you're watching this and you want to do this, feel free. Also, feel free to tell me any of the answers down below in the comments, or let me know if you have any thoughts about the books that I've mentioned. Do subscribe if you'd like to see more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.